Welcome everybody, and today we're taking a look at a brand new 4K limited edition release from BFI, and it is 1974's The Cars That Ate Paris. So this is directed by Peter Weir, who's done several of my favourite films that I've ever seen, 6 of other films from him in total that I have now seen. Absolute favourites would be like for Fearless, Witness, The Truman Show, and Master and Commander: The Far Side of the World. So this is a horror comedy that clocks in at 88 minutes long. Doesn't have an all-star cast, but there are a few noticeable Australian actors here, like John Million, who was in On the Beach, Walkabout, and Crocodile Dundee. You got Terry Camilleri, who was in Midnight Spares. He also had a really rather minor role in The Truman Show. If you know that if you know the film, then you'll know that there's several audience members that we see intercut with everything else, and he's the guy in the bathtub that is, celebrating all that went out during the end of that film, with all the bubbles going everywhere. So he's in that as well. And you've also got Bruce Spence, who was in Mad Max 2, Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, Midnight Spares, as well as Terry Camilleri, as well as more modern ones like The Dry and Mystery Road. So after surviving a car accident, a young man finds himself trapped in the isolated town of Paris, where the local economy depends on deliberately causing crashes and salvaging the wreckage. As he becomes entangled in the town's routines, tensions between its residents and a rebellious group of youths begin to surface. So, although the pacing for this isn't particularly consistent and the acting could be stronger, this is nonetheless a rather strange but ultimately engaging slice of Ozploitation. The production is also pretty great for a film costing a mere 250,000 Australian dollars, especially when it comes to the vehicular action and general destruction. I also like the look of the vehicles that they've got going on, because obviously with them being made from, car wrecks, they're all basically made of scrap. So you can see that there are certain vehicles that were, more well known, or you could probably tell what they were originally, but they've been altered in such a way that is to make them look a little bit more menacing, I guess you could say. There's a Volkswagen Beetle, for instance, where it's completely covered in not just silver paint, but also spikes on the front, on the roof, on the sides, and on the back as well, which comes in quite handy towards the end. The score is also well done, especially there's a part during this where it turns into a slight western. So you get a really rather Ennio Morricone inflicted part of the score, which is really great. There are a few laughs throughout as well. The cinematography is on point, and there is some decent thematic weight to the plot on top of all of that. So yeah, gets a 3.5 out of 5. Certainly not my favourite Peter Weir film. The ones I mentioned earlier, I definitely rank far higher than this, but it's still an early indication of the greatness that he would go on to bring to film itself. And yeah, there is the 4K disc of the film itself. Now, weirdly enough, this comes with another film of Peter Weir's, one that I also don't think has had a 4K or a Blu-ray release in the past, and it is 1979's The Plumber. Now, this is on Blu-ray only, it's not on 4K, and as you can see, it is region B only as well, whereas obviously the 4K will be region free. So if you are planning on buying this, then you need a region free Blu-ray player to actually see the second film in this. So yeah, The Plumber from 1979 is a psychological thriller film that was made for TV. Clocks in at 77 minutes long. Again, doesn't have a massive cast in terms of well-knowns as far as I'm concerned, but it does star Judy Morris, who was in Scobie Malone, which is a film that we looked at earlier this year in one of the Umbrella Ozploitation box sets, as well as Razorback, which is a really rather fantastic film, another one that actually got given a 4K release from Umbrella Entertainment, I believe it was. And then you've also got Candy Raymond, and they were in Money Movers. So a young couple living in a campus apartment complex are repeatedly harassed by an eccentric plumber who subjects them to a series of bizarre mind games while making unnecessary repairs to their bathroom. So this is definitely one of the better TV films that I've seen. And I think that is due to it being made for that format. And as a result, this has to be really rather a lot cleverer with its plot, as it can't rely on violence as a means of conflict between the characters, and therefore the psychological element needs to do the heavy lifting, which this does really, really rather well. The cast is also good. It has is overall an effective early example of having a stranger infiltrating your life in an antagonistic manner, although initially seeming to be friendly. So you only have to look at, like late 80s or early 90s stuff, like Unlawful Entry, for instance, or the Cable Guy with Jim Carrey from the late 90s. So yeah, this seems like an early precursor to those films. I'm not sure if it is the first film to be like that. I'm not, all knowing in terms of film, but yeah, it does seem like an early precursor to those kind of films. The pacing is also on point. It uses its limited locales well, and it is predominantly engaging throughout. So yeah, that also gets a 3.5 out of 5. To be honest, I enjoyed both for completely different reasons. I like The Plumber for its more stripped back approach to the psychological thriller genre, whereas The Cars that Ate Paris, yes, it has its pacing issues and some of the cast could be better, but the production that is great. And if you are into your vehicular action kind of films, then that should be right up your street. Apparently, it was an inspiration for Mad Max 5 years later, and even Stanley Kubrick named it as one of his favorite films of all time. So yeah, so both films, like I said, share the same release. 4K for The Cars that Ate Paris and Blu-ray for The Plumber. Not sure if they, like I said, if either have had a release in the past. Certainly don't think they have in the UK. You also get a nice sleeve cover with this release as well. Don't believe there's any reversible sleeve artwork. No, there is not. But we do get a booklet with this release as well. So inside what you have will always have Paris, automotive objection and settler nationalism in The Cars that Ate Paris by Dr. Stephen Morgan. There are spoilers in these write-ups, so I would obviously say watch the film or the films beforehand. And then you got Gleeful Anarchy, Ingrid and Peter Weir in conversation. So it goes through several of the cast and other elements there. Then we've got The Cars that Ate Paris, A View from 1975 by Jeff Brown. Then you've got cast and crew for The Cars that Ate Paris. And then you've got Peter Weir's The Plumber and the Uncanny Little Aussie Battler by Tara Judah. There are certain shots of the films throughout this booklet as well, but I don't want to spoil it too much. And yeah, then we have a bunch of extras on top of all of that, but I'll talk about the presentations first. So the main feature, The Cars that Ate Paris, has been restored at 4K resolution by the National Film Art and Sound Archive of Australia as part of the NFSA Restores program, using the original 35mm camera negative under the supervision of director Peter Weir. And it's presented in its original aspect ratio of 239:1. Audio is presented in an original mono alongside an optional 5.1 soundtrack. So I tried the 5.1 soundtrack and it sounds really rather good. And the film itself looks pretty good as well, but like I've said with many 4K releases in the past that haven't had a Blu-ray release that I've purchased, I can't compare to any prior release. And then The Plumber has been supplied to the BFI in its theatrical aspect ratio of 185:1, with audio presented in original mono. So apparently it had a theatrical release as well as being a TV film. I think the theatrical release might well have been Australian only though, because I don't believe it had a release over here in the UK, for instance. And then there are extras here that have been updated as well, which we'll get to in a second. So yeah, special features wise though, you got a commentary on here for the first film. Newly commissioned audio commentary by writer and film programmer Dr. Stephen Morgan, who obviously did a write-up in the booklet itself. Then you got My First Film, Terry Camilleri on The Cars that Ate Paris. That's from 2026. It's in colour. It's at 21 minutes long. And Terry Camilleri looks back upon his debut feature film role in this new interview filmed especially for this release. Then you got Nobody Leaves Paris, No One from 2026. Colour, clocks in at 15 minutes long. So in a video essay commissioned for this release, Chris O'Neill considers The Cars that Ate Paris in the context of the tumultuous time in which it was produced. Then you got an interview with Peter Weir on The Cars that Ate Paris. That's from 2003 in colour and the clock's in at 11 minutes long. So the director looks back on the film in this archival interview. Then you got an interview with Hal McElroy from 2008, colour, 6 minutes long, recorded by filmmaker Mark Hartley. The co-producer of The Cars that Ate Paris remembers the film. And then you've got a short film called Free to Go Michael. That's in black and white, clocks in at 31 minutes long, directed by Peter Weir himself. So Peter Weir writes, with not much more than a couple of short films to my name, I was hired in 1970 as a director at the Commonwealth film unit. This government body made documentary films for various departments, but head of production Dick Mason and producer Jill Brealey had other ideas. They wanted to make feature films. Lucky me. I was asked with two others to write a half-hour fiction film on youth or some vague heading like that. The three films to be combined to make an omnibus feature with the title Free to Go. What to write? I had a rough story about a revolution in Sydney, tanks in the streets, barricades, gunfire, that kind of thing. How could I work that in? Then there was my friendship with writer performer Graham Bond. We'd done a couple of review programs, comedy sketches for TV, not much, but I could somehow join that to the battle scenes at Circular Quay. Maybe I could add a documentary filmmaker from a mainstream TV program doing a piece on youth, a chance for a little satire. So in this haphazard way, Michael came to be. So yeah, and yeah, that has been restored in 4K resolution by the National Film and Sound Archive in Australia. And then we've got another short film here by the looks of things. It's called Incredible Floridas, and that is 12 minutes long, colour from 1972. At the Commonwealth Film Unit, there was one prize job, The Diary, and one real documentary destined to play as a short film in the cinema, shot on 35mm. And that was the gold standard, apparently. Expensive, beautiful, sharp, the most highly desired film gauge, worshipped by we young directors. And it came by my way. A performance of a short orchestral piece, Incredible Floridas, composed and conducted by Richard Meal, had recently been shot on 35mm. I was asked to make a documentary based around this material, featuring the composer. How to make it filmic, that was the challenge. I met Richard, and through him came to know Arthur Rimbaud. Richard had been inspired by his poetry, and in turn so was I. As for Richard's composition, it struck me as music that might have been played against a silent horror film. So yeah, and he says, did Richard, like early German expressionist films? He did. Would he object to me making a short film in that style, playing part of the music over it while he watched from the stalls? He wouldn't mind. Richard's music, Rimbaud's story, and German expressionism, a heady mix, but it got the juices flowing. So yeah, that was Peter Weir talking about the film Incredible Floridas, and he also obviously directed that. And just like Free to Go Michael, that has also been restored in 4K resolution by the National Film and Sound Archive in Australia. And then you got a Guardian interview with Peter Weir from 1985, audio only, and clocking at 70 minutes long. So Peter Weir looks back across an eclectic career as a filmmaker in this onstage retrospective interview, recorded at the BFI's National Film Theatre London in 1985. So yeah, that has apparently that exhibits some small audio dropouts which are inherent to the master material. So yeah, they've said that just so no one can wonder if that's supposed to be there or not. And then in terms of The Plumber, you got a commentary on that from 2026, and that is a newly commissioned audio commentary by film critics Alexander Heller Nicholas and Josh Nelson. An interview with Peter Weir about The Plumber from 2003, that's in colour and it's an 8 minutes long, so he looks back on the film in this archival interview. And then you got Peter Weir's Dream Within a Dream, that's from 2026, colour, 18 minutes long, and that is Peter Weir's Dream Within a Dream was initiated in November 2025 by Jakub Drzeniski, a Polish distributor and filmmaker, visited Australia to propose a collaboration with Peter and his daughter Ingrid for a visual installation commissioned by the Timeless Film Festival in Warsaw for a Weir retrospective. The short film was edited from outtakes of Picnic at Hanging Rock, alternative scenes and unused takes, including a so-called lost ending, paired with a narration specially recorded by Peter Weir, guiding viewers through the film's creation and offering a rare glimpse into his process and craft. So apparently these materials were considered lost for some 50 years or so. Recently rediscovered and carefully scanned from the original 35mm film by the National Sound and Film Archive of Australia. And yeah, there's more writing there, but I won't bore you with too much more of that, to be honest. But regardless, obviously there is a lot on this release. 2 films, and a whole lot of extras to go alongside that. You've also got trailers and image galleries as well on top of all of those extras on top of that. So yeah, a really rather comprehensive release there. If you are a fan of Peter Weir, much like I am, and that's the main reason I got this release, then I'm sure you'll get something out of this, either as the films or the extras or both. But nonetheless, if you have seen the cars at 8 Paris or the Plumber before, let's hear your thoughts on them. But nonetheless, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.